Nick lives, developer and co-founder of indie studio Deli Interactive, and creator of A Wonderful Day for Fishing, a short horror fishing title that you've probably seen Markiplier play.
I'm good, I'll let that one. Oh!
Nick has recently released a new game with visuals inspired by 1995 psychological horror The Dark Eye.
Dearest Aegeus, the day is soon upon us.
And chock full of 60s era American television aesthetics. The Night Signal, released November 7th, 2022, is an uncanny dive into 60s Americana. Our game starts with a quote from Earl Nightingale, and then a live-action intro showing the player's street with fog encompassing the neighborhood. We're then thrust into our home, where the player has received a brand new Henniker television. Reading through the instructions, we're met with a cautious statement. Antenna does not operate correctly at night. Please refrain from using after sundown. We adjust the rabbit ears on our television, and this begins our core gameplay element. The majority of our time in Night Signal will be spent watching television and adjusting the antennas. There's 4 channels throughout the day we have to choose from. The news channel, giving us daily updates of the world around us.
Wisdom you can only get here. You're watching Channel 1 News.
The Sitcoms channel, with parodies of classic American shows. Ball and Chain, parodying I Love Lucy.
Robbie, where'd you put my car keys?
Only Father Knows, a hilarious take on Father Knows Best.
Son, let me tell you what it means to truly be a man.
Okay.
Being a man, son, means never showing emotion, with the exception of violent rage.
Okay.
And Cave People, a Flintstones knockoff with accompanying animation.
Why? Where'd you put my cave keys?
I put them in the cave kitchen, cave husband.
As well as the sitcom channel, we also have a whole channel dedicated to the Fog Zone. Seeing as though this game feels like it could make an episode of the Twilight Zone, it's very fitting to have a daily occurring show that seemingly mirrors what's happening to the player.
Nothing is what it should be. A place where science is always lost and faith always misplaced. You are entering the fog.
And lastly, the Game Show channel, with a quiz-based game show, Brain Tease, and a wheel-based game show, Wheel Spin.
Say it together, everyone.
The programming on the television really sets the tone and aesthetics that you're in this weird alternate American history with these uncanny claymation faces and these dark comedy television shows to boot. In its whole, Night Signal feels less of a game as it does an art piece. But if you're in the camp of video games being a great medium of portraying some really riveting art, I think you'll have a blast consuming all of these shows. At the end of every day, a closing broadcast message plays accompanying the American flag, just like the closing broadcasts of yesteryear.
KVIA 7 together in El Paso, KVI OTV 6 in Carlsbad, New Mexico. This concludes another broadcast day.
And with the closing static, we're sent into the night.
This concludes our broadcast day.
The start of our first night, we get a knock at the door, with the TV guide being slipped underneath. Opening the TV guide, we see it's full of 16 blank pages, with the back cover telling us to watch the signals, followed by a diagram of the position that our antenna should be in. Changing the antenna to straight up in channel 2 gives us our first signal, the Watcher's Eye, the start to our Night Signals journey, and allowing us to use our remote control to produce a spark and fire it. Throughout the 6 nights, you're tasked with surfing the channels and various antenna signals to find all of the broadcasts to fill these 16 blank pages, each signal doing something to make your night harder or drive you deeper into the fog of the night, unlocking the true knowledge that's hidden within this world. I'm going to take this moment to run through the signals and how they affect the player in the order of how they appear in the guide before moving on to this overarching story that's in Night Signal. We have the previously discussed Watcher's Eye, but our first real threat is going to be Beazle. Beazle is this floating head that if you don't make time to watch him, he'll appear at your front door before eventually letting himself in. The feelers are these hands that spawn on the floor and attack the player every time the channel is tuned into. You must use your remote control to blast them away. Kazuzu, the multi-mouth monstrosity, makes a kazoo sound randomly play throughout your days and nights after discovering him. Skelly Welly spawns on the couch behind the player. This skeleton will follow you with his head around the room before eventually jumping up and chasing the player down. The Night Orb, with a foggy moon projected onto the TV screen, as well as into your living room air. Humdrum, a sweet claymation fly who takes the bad in your body and makes it good. Every time you tune into this channel, you will be healed up. Blabber is a television puppet who simply cannot stop talking. He litters the walls behind your couch with his conversation. Tuning into Flathead's channel will cause the player's roof to start caving in before eventually crushing them if they fail to change the channel in time. Hubs covers the floor in a black blob-like fog, slowing the player's movement from the moment the channel is viewed. Quackers, a literal hand puppet, produces the same effect as the feelers, but this time it's floating in midair. Shouting One. Now, I'm not entirely sure what he does. I thought he produced the random screaming that could be heard in your house, but this effect happens even without discovering him. I don't know what it does. Goo Goo is a melting doll which shrinks the player down to his size. Sweets covers the player's screen in a blurry, distorted raindrop effect, seriously hindering vision. True Gaze replaces the player's pictures with his own likeness. And then lastly we have the Door, which I will cover in this next section. The narrative in Night Signal is told mostly through notes as well as the news channel every morning. Every once in a while we'll get a slight hint from one of the other channels. After our first night, a note is slipped under our door welcoming us as a fellow watcher and urging us to seek more signals and learn from the guide. On this same day, the news runs a story about a dog whose owner has mysteriously disappeared and is roaming the streets, letting everyone know. This can be heard through our own front door.
Authorities are now investigating the missing person, identified as 23-year-old Alice Prairie.
Day 3 has the most world building out of any of the days, with us learning more about the CEO of Heinecker, Howard Heinecker. An episode of Brain Tease reveals that the CEO is known for their mysterious disappearances.
CEO suddenly disappeared in 1962. Howard Hineker?
That's correct!
And our episode of The Fog Space is focused around a CEO keeping a secret that has gave him unknown powers, before an entity claims it's time for them to take what's rightfully theirs.
His secret sure is hard to keep, but that's why I'm such a great CEO.
It is time for you to return the favor, Mr. Humdinger. We gave you our secret. Now it is time to take what is rightfully ours.
Our news broadcast on Day 3 starts with a weather report claiming this thick fog that has come over the town doesn't seem to be budging. But thankfully, the Chili Festival will still be happening in the following days.
And I, for one, can't wait to try what those West Acre mobs can cook up this year.
Day 4 starts with our TV heavily distorted by the static, with any attempt of adjusting the antennas failing to fix the image quality. A note is slid under our door telling us our eyes are adjusting and to not lose faith. Through the static, if we tune into the news channel, we learn Sadly, the Chili Festival has been canceled due to the recent disappearances.
Today's breaking story is a tragic one, I'm afraid. The West Acre Chili Contest has been canceled. We received the news this morning, as the West Acre Mob Council informed us that due to another unfortunate disappearance, there would no longer be enough qualified chili tasters to judge the entries.
This is the only channel that is even remotely viewable through the static on day 4. Day 5, the static is now nearly impossible to watch through. Our daily note informs us of the chilling fact: the days are now shorter, and the nights are now longer. The fog seeks the faithful, and we need to seek more signal, for the everlasting night is nearly upon us. Day 6, our final day, every channel has now succumbed to the static, with a cult figure covered by the text, "Watchers, the night is upon us," occasionally coming into focus. Our note lets us know this night will never end, and to find the last signals that our guide is missing, with the final one being the door. Once the door has been found, our TV grows as it's shown our house covered by fog before the video slowly encroaches up to our front door before finally we hear a knock. And upon opening the door, we're met with the final cutscene. Completing the game, we're gifted with an art book detailing the creation of the game. Every model in this game was made practically with either clay, paper, or some clever photoshopping of the two, really giving this game that home movie feeling that I feel translated visually very well into this indie project. The shows displayed in the channel during the daytime have some legitimately funny humor to them, while still being this uncanny alternate reality that never failed to keep my attention, especially as the lore was portrayed through this medium and it wasn't just reading notes. Like, you could find some hints here and there about what was going on in this world through watching these shows. The Night Signal is a little gem that you can tell has a lot of heart put into it, and I recommend supporting Nick, and I'd love to see what else he could produce with his very unique approach to game design. And that was Night Signal. I'm currently working on a really big 3-part series I'm really excited for and I think you're gonna love. Also, thank you so much for the support and everything on my last video. That absolutely blew me away. If you haven't checked out that video though, I'll link it right here. Go follow my Twitter. It's in my links in the bottom, and that's gonna do it. So thank you all so much for watching as always, and I will see you in the next one.